Welcome to the Pregnancy Help Podcast. I'm Christine Grimmett. I'm here with Valerie Harkins, the director of the Maternity Housing Coalition and housing specialist here at Heartbeat International. And we have Faith Cintron from Aid for Women here with us. And I'm excited to get to that conversation in a moment. But I want to remind our listeners that Heartbeat International publishes a monthly e-newsletter called Heart and Home. It's specific to the housing community, those involved in maternity housing ministries. New articles every month, new resources. We advertise our podcast in it. It's a great way to get a collection of what's new happening in the housing world each month, and it is free. So if you would like to sign up, go to heartbeatservices.org. You can click on the store, and there's a section for e-newsletters. You can also email us at support@heartbeatinternational.org, and we would be happy to get you subscribed to that newsletter. So with that, Valerie, I will turn things over to you and to Faith.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, Faith, thank you for joining us. I'm going to do my best on this call to gear our questions and our conversation in such a way that hopefully I hit on the key points that I know many of our homes have had. And let me tell you what that means in the subject of this. We are going to tackle what can sometimes be a hairy subject, and that is housing undocumented women in maternity homes and all that entails. So I get lots of questions about this from leaders in the maternity home movement, particularly when touring or if they maybe run into an obstacle while they are just in their daily operations of ministry. So how fortunate for you. I've compiled all those questions here, and I'm planning to just shoot them at you one by one and see how it goes. What do you think?
I am ready.
Okay, I appreciate it. So for those listening for the first time, Faith is our one of our advisory council members for the Maternity Housing Coalition. This means that Faith is one of my teammates, someone that works within maternity housing in the community that I look to for advice or guidance and support in building out this coalition that produces many of the tools and trainings that support homes all over the nation and now all over the world. So, Faith, why don't you bring the audience up to speed? So why don't you tell us who you are, where you serve, what happens there?
Sure. So I am Faith Cintron, and I serve at Aid for Women in Chicago. So Aid for Women, we are actually growing. We signed a lease on Saturday, so we are growing to 8 pregnancy care centers in Chicagoland and then 2 maternity homes. And I am the maternity homes manager. So because we are one of those twofold organizations where we have pregnancy centers and maternity homes, I'm the director of our homes. I've been doing maternity housing ministry for 13 years. 8 of those were as a live-in staff member. So if you've seen it, I've probably seen it. If you've lived it, I've probably lived it. But then about 3 years ago, I got married and my husband decided I probably shouldn't live in the house anymore because, he wanted his wife. So yeah, that's kind of me. Our home is structured in a way that we have a maternity home for pregnant women where they come during their pregnancy and stay 3 to 6 months after their baby comes. And then we have our transitional home a little bit, they're not on the same campus, so it's a little bit further away, and women are welcome to stay there up to 2 years while they are continuing to sort out life and figure out what's next for them and their families.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. Hey, what would you say is unique about Aid for Women, their maternity housing specifically?
Sure. So we're a Catholic Christian home. We have a really strong Catholic Christian identity as a home. We are one of the homes, I think we're one of the few homes in Illinois that has no age cap for our residents. So anyone 18 and older. We serve multi-child families. So moms with 1, sometimes 2 additional children are at least welcome to apply. And if we have the spacing, then we'll make it work. And then I think also just having the 3-year length of stay for our residents makes us a little bit unique. So we're not exclusively serving pregnant women. We're kind of adding to the spectrum of care for the entire family for several years.
So That 3 year mark, by the way, is just incredible. I always think it's great. I love the part where you talk about serving women with multiple kiddos, right? And all that that entails, and you do it with so much joy and just working that out, and then the longevity of your programming and helping them. Those are just two of my like favorite.
We love it too.
Yeah. So, okay. You and I, we spent some time together recently. I had the privilege of going out to Chicago, hanging out with you, getting to meet your staff, your residents. I actually got to spend a couple of nights in your home. In one of your home, I believe the name was Monica's house. And so that was great. Such a warm and welcoming atmosphere. So I visited both homes. And I noticed this. You've had experiences serving undocumented residents. What is that like?
Yeah, so, and I know right now it is such a hot button, but we actually kind of built Monica's house because we had undocumented women. And I know often when we think undocumented, because we're in the US, our first thought is our southern border. But actually, we had a woman who was fleeing the family size laws in China. She was one of our first undocumented women. She was married and had 2 kids and was pregnant again. And, the government said, okay, have an abortion. And she said, no, thank you, and flew to Chicago. She didn't know the language. She didn't have anyone here, but she found Aid for Women. And so she and her little girl lived with us for, I think, close to 4 years. And, while she was with us, we realized like, okay, we need someplace else. So we opened a second home to give her, a length of stay, a greater length of stay. And then we had another woman from Rwanda who came with her little boy. And again, just, she had her baby and she just needed more care. So I think it's an important part of the conversation to realize like undocumented people come from all over the world. And we've been really blessed to serve women from all over the world. I think one of the big things is bridging those cultural gaps. We as homes, because we're in America, those of us that are in America, and wherever we're from, we come at things with our Western ideas and ideals. And when we are serving a woman from Nigeria or Guatemala, there is a cultural difference. And so, it sort of requires you to suspend some of your Western ideas to serve these women well. I think also, we have all kind of not become experts, but we are constantly learning the changes in the asylum process, how to work with immigration, helping, because, our objective isn't just to sort of aid and abet undocumented women. Our objective is to rectify their immigration status so that way they can become successful in this country. So, we do a lot of reading of immigration paperwork. I have, made many a phone call to USCIS, gotten to know some of the agents. And so they are the ones who, work with the immigration to get refugee hearings and status and that sort of thing. And so, you get to know them and their inner workings because that's how our women obtain paperwork, maintain, their status as asylum seekers, that sort of thing.
Okay, so if we have a home that is thinking about serving undocumented women, and let's say they haven't served anyone, an undocumented woman before, what would you say they should be thinking about?
My first advice is to make friends with lawyers because and there are so many really good pro bono organizations out there. Be careful to vet them because you want to make sure that their mission aligns with your mission. make friends with people and churches that are from the same country or the same culture. When we had our resident come from China, we found a Chinese Christian church that she became really active in. We do our best to find volunteers, who at least speak the language, if not share the culture with the residents, because we want them to be comfortable in our homes. And they are also kind of a bridge for us to become sort of cultural ambassadors for our residents. And it's also really important to realize that just because someone is from a particular country doesn't mean that they identify with our concept of the country. That would be like, someone meeting me being from Chicago and assuming I wore cowboy hat and boots like I was from Houston.
Right.
Different countries have
assuming that Houston wears cowboy boots.
Right. Isn't that the one? No.
Well, so for the audience, I'm from Houston, and as much as I attest this, we do annually have a huge event where we all wear our boots. So it's kind of right, kind of true.
Yeah. So, like realizing that regional culture is real within women serving women from a country. Life is going to be a little more expensive because these women are not eligible for government assistance, assuming, your residents receive government assistance. So, no food stamps. They can receive WIC, at least in Illinois, and I know some of those things change depending on your state. They are eligible for Medicaid while they're pregnant, and I know in Illinois for, I think it's 6 months after the baby comes, but then insurance goes away. So, it's going to be a little more expensive to take care of these women. And that's something, it was very funny because I was talking to my staff today, and there's often a sense of jealousy from our other residents because, they're in our home. Some of them are out working or going to school. And then my undocumented women they're signed up for ESL classes. They're doing our programming, but outside of those things, they're not eligible to get jobs. They're not eligible to sign up for college classes until we have English down. And so, I can sometimes hear the grumblings of, well, I'm at work all day and she's just, what is she doing?
Right.
And so it's important to remind my ladies that everyone is on their own track and we don't sit and compare and judge. But it comes up, and it comes up often.
Right. I would not have thought of that right away, but I just from my own experiences at home could totally see how that happens. So, okay. So let me just address the elephant in the room, if we can. Here's the topic that I get the panic call about from maternity homes, right? And that is a maternity home director or whomever has a woman that is in urgent need that qualifies for the program, all except for her residency status, right? And they want to bring her in, and they want to provide services to her, except that some of those that are running maternity homes are receiving pushback from community members, donors, or significant maybe donors of major gifts to the community, and especially board members, right? And so there is a bit of a tension that can exist there between some that don't want a maternity home to bring in an undocumented woman. Now, this can be quite problematic given the state of our country at the moment, and that not only do we see quite the immigration crisis happening and spreading throughout all of our states, we also are seeing an issue arising with access to unprescribed abortion medications. As you know, we've talked about off recording about that, and trafficking issues and many things that these particular women are susceptible to. So it becomes an issue of life and vulnerability because these women that are undocumented are now oftentimes being handed an abortion pill, very simply, almost like Advil, right? Without any follow-up care, without anyone knowing at all. So the maternity homes are caught between saying, hey, we exist so that women can feasibly choose life and carry her pregnancy to term by providing housing. These women need housing and don't have it, and therefore are choosing, feeling like they have to terminate. Yet there's a bit of a political, sometimes, or different reasons, divide with the board and community members. So for our directors that may be hearing that are in this spot, could you give them any advice or thoughts about how to respond, or even perhaps how to think about this situation?
Yeah, I actually really love this question. And not exclusive because I really like an argument. And I
Well,
would
that
say
is
the
why
first thing.
that is why I invited you to the table.
Right.
That's what. Well, if there's one person that wouldn't mind tackling this, it would be Faith.
Yeah, and I would say, my first advice is don't make it political as much as you can. It doesn't have to be political. It's just about saving lives. Um, the first question that I brought up when I got pushback was, does it fit our mission? The Aid for Women mission is threefold. Find women who are already pregnant and might be considering abortion, help them choose life, support them in that decision. At no point does it ask what color they are, where they came from, what their God looks like, anything like that. It's those three things. Does it fit my mission? And for me, I can say yes. Serving these women is my mission. It fits my mission. So, that is my response to pretty much any board member who has an opposition to it. This is our mission. Please explain to me how it's not. And they typically can't. I would also say, you hear about the anchor baby idea. And the anchor baby is a myth. US born children of immigrants cannot sponsor their parents for a green card until they're 21 years old. You can't just have a baby and then get a green card. It's not how it works.
Yeah.
They must be able to prove that they can financially support their parents before they can sponsor them for a green card. So at 21, they have to be making, whatever cost of living is wherever they are to support their parents. They have to leave the US the parents have to leave the US for up to 10 years before they're allowed to return to go through the legal process to get a green card with their children. And if they are eventually granted a green card after being here for 31 years, or being here for 21, leaving for 10 and coming back, they have to wait 5 years for naturalization. So, I'm sure that some people come in with the anchor baby in air quotes idea, but that is really like a long truck. So, it really, that idea to me is such a big misconception and misnomer. And then, when we've gotten through all of the legal things and those things, most, if not all of us, are Christian homes, right? And when I don't know the answer, there's this really good book that somebody wrote called the Bible. And so we crack that open when we need an answer, right? And so I just have a couple of scriptures that I lean into in this conversation. The first is Exodus 23:9. You shall not oppress a resident alien. You well know how it feels to be an alien since you were once aliens yourself in the land of Egypt. I don't think that is confusing. I think that is a pretty clear dictate from I am. So I'm not going to argue with that. And then I have Leviticus. So we know that's the book of the law, right? And not just the law of man, the law of God. So Leviticus 19:34, the alien who resides with you shall be to you as the citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Again, I like to argue, but if there's one person in the world I won't argue with, it's my God, because he'll always win.
Probably a good idea.
Right. And then Hebrews 13:1-2. Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers. For by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. I think these all really speak to the topic. And then, the other one, and I have a whole, exegesis on this of the flight into Egypt, right? So, like we had a Messiah born, pretty cool. And his parents went to Bethlehem because that's what they were told to do by the government.
Right.
And they lived under a very oppressive government.
Yeah.
And when Herod caught wind of what was going on in Bethlehem, he ordered to kill all the babies. And so Joseph was in an oppressive and dangerous government. And did he stay where he was? No, he took his family and he fled to a completely different country. And that country didn't say, please turn around and go back to Bethlehem. Herod is looking for that baby. He stayed there. He raised his family there for a time until he was told to move on. So who are we to turn away refugees? I know that one's a little bit out there, but I look at my little families, and I think of that flight from Egypt. I think of my girls who have walked the Darien Pass, women who have flown from African nations to Central America to walk up through the border, because where they were was unsafe, where they were, the possibility of their baby being murdered was real, much like sweet baby Jesus in Bethlehem. I do not think that it was a bad choice for Joseph to move his family to keep them safe, just like I don't know that's a bad choice for some of these women. And I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying that there aren't abuses to the process. I'm not saying that immigration reform doesn't need to be done. But I am saying that we are supposed to perceive and receive everyone that we encounter as Jesus. And that includes our refugees. And he was one of them.
Now, in Chicago, where you are specifically, is it illegal for you to provide housing to an undocumented woman?
It is not. We are a sanctuary city, so I know that is definitely an advantage. And I would say, to the best of my knowledge, as long as the women that you are serving have asylum paperwork, it's not illegal for you to house them. It becomes illegal when they aren't showing up for their court appointments. It becomes illegal when they're living outside of their prescribed probation, because that's what it is. I mean, they were arrested and they are on probation, and so there are court requirements and things like that. And so, that's I have this written down as a point later on. But when you move an undocumented woman in, don't just have her wave her papers at you. Get copies of everything. Sure. Read it all. Because you can break the law if you're not really careful. So yeah, just the law exists to serve you as long as you follow it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great input. That was great input. Okay, I have another one here. Faith, do you speak Spanish?
I do not. I speak French very poorly.
Okay, so I get this question a lot. So I was thinking, you don't speak Spanish. So how are you doing it? I know the language barrier has seemed insurmountable for many homes. So what are you doing?
Yeah, it is scary. It is scary, I think, for most of the staff, because literally one person on my staff does speak Spanish and not natively. Google Translate is our best friend. We all have it on our phones. Yeah. Duolingo, everyone has that angry little bird reminding them to do their lessons. Yeah. Our objective isn't to have a Spanish speaking house or a Igbo speaking house, anything like that. We're not going to adapt our language to meet our residents. We encourage them to learn English. Because like right now, all of our women are Spanish speaking, but that's not always been the case. And so when you have 3 different women from 3 different countries speaking 3 different languages, we have to pick a universal, and that happens to be English. And then, I think it's really important to find volunteers that speak the language. It's really helpful to act as translators. But also, like, once you're living with someone who speaks a different language, it is an immersive experience, and it is astonishing how quickly you pick up on the necessary words.
Mhm.
And then, my last bit of advice on the language barrier is that, like, we're really lucky that the Holy Spirit speaks every language. And when you need him, he definitely shows up. And I lean into that, and it's super helpful.
I caught on to that while I was visiting. We used Google Translate while we were there, and it was so helpful. It was great. But I will say, I have a confession. I broke my Duolingo streak.
Oh no.
For those that don't know what Duolingo is, it's a free app on your phone to help learn Spanish. And it's an effective little app, but there are quite a few jokes and memes that go around about it because it absolutely hounds you if you break your daily practice streak. And when she referenced the angry bird, the app turns in, it has this little bird icon that gives you the dirty eye
Yeah,
for every
yeah.
day. My bird just laid down and died. It looks like a
Oh no.
flat bird.
And that's so triggering for us millennials because this
Yes,
is like Tamagotchi. Like, you just killed
yes.
your Tamagotchi. It's
I
terrible.
literally, it's how I felt. I thought I killed my bird. So anyway, okay. I've got last two questions here. You have recommendations for practices that embrace cultural sensitivity just for your everyday regular programming?
Yes, ask questions. Ask all the questions. Ask for explanations. Use the question why. Don't assume that because you saw Encanto, you totally understand how Colombia works. I actually didn't even know it took place in Colombia until my girls told me. Um, just because someone speaks the same language doesn't mean that they share the same culture. Um, Another thing I would recommend everyone try to remember is that Africa is a continent, not a country.
Yeah.
Uh, like our country identifiers are very important. Our
Yes.
dignity and our identifiers are very important. Um, and then, also just like that Western ideology. We are taught that babies eat table foods at 6 months and you start them with rice and don't give them bananas and,
Mhm.
da 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 da. In some countries, babies eat beans when they're 4 months old. And that's okay. Just watch it very carefully and try not to assert your opinion on it. If you're nervous, run it by a nurse or a doctor. But people have been living in these countries and raising babies for millennia. And so it's okay if it's different from the way we perceive it. It's different from the way we do it because they're from a different place. And also just get ready. Well, my house mom at Heather's house made a really good point. It was just be ready for a growth in your community and how much more vibrant your home will be and what a good learning experience it is for everyone involved. She's living here around the clock with a couple of our women, and I think, seeing things and experiencing things that none of us normally would, because how many, unless you got to be an exchange student or do, a study abroad program, how often were you able to live with someone from a completely different country, completely different culture? So it is enriching to your community for sure.
Love it. Okay, last one. And this is my favorite one. This one isn't from the community. This is just me. I like to ask this. So I'm a bit of an odd duck in that I like failure. I actually try to think at one thing I've failed at each day. And that's because that means I was trying something that I wasn't immediately good at, something that I wasn't totally secure that I knew. So I was stretching that day, and it often ends in comical results. Despite what that little fear voice says inside of me, it very, very rarely ends in devastating results and mostly just comical results of just stretching. So, with that being said, I will tell you, I believe it's often failure is often a better educator for our path forward than immediate success is. So, have you had an experience of failure while serving undocumented women that you found informed your steps going forward? And do you feel comfortable sharing that with us so we could learn as well?
Yes, for sure. The paperwork thing is a big one. We've had a couple of missed appointments because we took one of our women are coming from different countries and different traumas than, like there are the trauma brain that we understand of our typical homeless American woman. That trauma brain doesn't involve boa constrictors or jungles, or so the women that we're serving have different trauma that we don't understand. And so when they say, oh, I have an appointment in January of 2025, they sure as heck do, but they also had one 2 weeks ago that you missed. So look at the paperwork, get the paperwork from them. And then knowing that immigration agents often are more bark than bite. They are scary people. They have to be scary people, but they're not unreasonable people. And I know that I have had many a conversation with a few agents of like, okay, this is who I am, and this is what I'm doing for this woman. Can you work with me? And they so far have always said yes. We miss an appointment and I make a phone call and they go, oh my gosh, okay, that's fine. We'll reschedule it, or we'll get back to you, or whatever. If something else I would say is when our women decide of their own volition to move out of our programs, it's heartbreaking, right? They say, I don't need this anymore, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's, to me, even more heartbreaking when they are undocumented and we haven't rectified their immigration status. I've had that happen a couple times. We all have our ways of dealing with it. But realizing that you're not a criminal and you're not a failure if an undocumented woman decides to move out. And this applies to all of our women. Like, you haven't failed her, you planted seeds. And I had one of my girls move out with her little baby, and then was just last summer called me out of the blue. He's in first grade now, and she is now fully legal in the US and working, and she came to visit and we hung out for a day, and it was wonderful. And I was terrified because she was 19 and left my house with a 6-month-old and no working papers and no immigration status. But these are resourceful, smart women. And then even though people won't be open to helping you help these families, it's important to engage in the conversation with those people in a loving way, which is not always my strong suit. But we have an obligation of as pro-life people, as maternity homes, to do our best to educate people in the fact that serving immigrants is a pro-life issue. There are lives at stake. There are babies at stake, regardless of how a woman came into the country. So do your best to arm yourself with good talking points, and then try to engage in the conversation as much as possible in a loving way.
Well, I appreciate that input. Thank you for letting me throw some of these questions at you. I think if we see some good response from this conversation, we will, of course, build out more resources on the topic to go in depth. And you would be first on my list to talk to about that if we do it. But I really appreciate you sharing your time, your expertise, and your failures with us. So we will all check the paperwork.
Yes, check the paperwork.
We will make our own copies. Roger that. Roger that. Well, I appreciate everything that you do, Faith. I so enjoyed our time together. And I can't wait to see what continues to develop and come out of the work that you're doing there at Aid for Women.
Yeah, and you're always welcome to come back for, a Colombian breakfast, and we'll see who our next moms are. I got a girl from Kenya who's looking for a place. So who knows? Who knows what God is bringing to us next?
It's always an adventure.
Well, thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Faith. It was a pleasure to have you both on. Thank you for all that you're doing for the housing community, and to all of our listeners for the work that you do. Whether you're directly involved or you're supporting the pregnancy help community, we appreciate you. and subscribe to this podcast so that you can hear more updates on what's happening in the movement, more ideas that we share together so that we can best serve our communities with pregnancy help. So with that, thank you for listening to this episode of the Pregnancy Help Podcast, and have a great rest of your day.